point.
Yeah, exactly.
But really, we've already been talking.
Yeah.
Going for like 5
well, you
minutes.
can catch you eating the burger out.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely cutting that out. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man.
Because I know you have no idea what you're getting into. But I appreciate you taking the time and talking about your story. So just for everybody at home, I know hardly anything about you. And like today's, we just met several minutes ago. But I like the idea of just meeting someone that I don't know and talking about their story and everything. So I appreciate you coming on and being open about that. So you're telling me a little bit about what you're currently doing. No kids. Got a girlfriend, but you're working through. What do you do right now?
I'm a grad assistant at Washita Baptist. Just working on my master's right now, and basically coaching over there. And then after I finish up my master's, or actually after today, maybe having another job that I'll be pursuing. So
nice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why you're dressed up.
That's
why you got dressed up. Not for us.
Not for the podcast, but I mean, it's presentation's everything.
That's right. Presentation is everything. I sit in my hoodie.
Yeah.
Cool. So you, it's funny. I was listening to a video of your testimony from FCA, and I don't know. I was like, I'm trying to figure out what to talk to Brandon about at the beginning. I was not the quarterback. I was like the band nerd that was like playing trombone and on the band bus, which had its own interesting stories.
I was in the band for a while.
Yeah?
So
What'd you play?
I played the trumpet.
Trumpet?
Yeah, I was in the band till like 9th grade, probably.
Yeah, that's when all the football players jumped off in 9th grade, because it was like you can't really do both. It's very difficult.
I went on the band trip. We went to like Six Flags, and after that, I was out.
That was always great. Oh, we're gonna turn you up just a little bit. Turn it down just a little bit. That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the band trips were definitely interesting. And you grew up in Jesseville, is that right?
Yeah. So I lived in Hot Springs Village and went to Jesseville my whole life. And my dad, he still lives out there. So so that's home.
Yep.
Retirement community over there.
I grew up in Searcy.
Okay.
A lot, so,
I got you.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
So that's where I born and raised until I went to college at ASU in Jonesboro.
Yeah.
Gotta say, I thought I was gonna get a computer science degree, and because I loved computers my whole life, I got a 1.4 GPA and failed all my computer science courses.
Hey man,
and now I teach technology and computer science. So it's like
you're the guy I want teaching me.
So it's a very interesting story how that came about.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. I guess first, actually, I've got a topic I wanted to bring up. FCA, Future Christian
Fellowship
of Christian Athletes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So this is for all athletes, right?
Yeah,
and I'm looking at Devin too back here.
Works a lot with it. I mean, it's for all athletes, but it's not just for athletes.
Is it not?
No,
okay.
It's not just, and that's like
that's a big misconception.
I do FCA at Washita Baptist. I run that over there.
Okay.
And that's like one of the hardest things that we have, like trying to get across to people.
Yeah.
It's like they hear FCA, so if they're not any collegiate athlete, then they're not coming, and so we're having like trying to find ways to reach them and like promote that and stuff. And it's athletics is the tool. It's just a way that brings people together. Just because you think about athletics worldwide, like, I mean, it's like the number one, grossing thing, like whether it's the Super Bowl or, and those guys, there's a lot of people can relate to it and stuff. But, FCA, like, we do all kind of games for everybody. We don't just do sports. Like I said, it's just a tool. And if you've ever like stumbled and caught yourself, you're athletic enough to come to FCA,
That's definitely me.
Yeah,
so the reason I bring this up is because in the last, 2 years or so, I've been seeing this esports popping up, right? Like video gamers, and like there's scholarships, for
they built like a
esports.
giant hub or something, didn't they?
Yeah,
that they're like playing at.
It's crazy. Like I was looking at like there was this meme photo that was like video game championships in the 90s, and it was like 3 guys and they're in one of their mom's basements and they're like playing video games, and it was like in 2019 and it's like they sold out an entire arena for to watch 2 dudes like just playing video games. I was like, that's crazy, but that would consider me an athlete if that is a thing. Yes, right?
Come on. Come on with it.
So, I mean, I was so surprised,
the mental focus that goes into that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it surprised me though that there's now scholarships and everything for esports and video games, and I was like, that would be my thing. Yeah, I would have gotten so many scholarships back then.
1.4 GPA would have been out the window.
I would have gotten through on that scholarship. So that's pretty funny. And college sports is like, well, in football, I think athletes don't get paid, right? Because that's a big thing.
Yeah, that definitely is a big topic, and it really kind of. It all varies, like D1, D2, D3, kind of like because scholarships and all that stuff works differently at each level. Gotcha. So like D1s, they can give you a full ride scholarship. They can pay for all your school, and then they can help kind of put some money back in your pocket kind of deal. And D2, D3, we're all breaking ours up and giving portions. So it works differently at different levels.
Yeah, I remember hearing like that there was like a lot of people talking about that issue about like
it's crazy
because one, I think colleges make a ton of money,
and that's like the biggest deal is like those D1 schools, like all the publicity that they're getting because of an athlete or whatever. So those athletes feel like, hey, we should be getting more from it. But at the same time, like those guys are getting all their school paid for, their meals paid for.
Yeah, and especially if they're getting a little back too.
Yeah, and so
that's interesting.
It's just crazy because sometimes you think about like there's so many people that wish they could be playing D1 football just to have that opportunity, and then we got guys who are
complaining about it.
It's like, man, like you got to come to D2.
Exactly.
Come to D2. We'll show you. So,
and it's like it's almost as if it's like they're ready for their big payday of like going to the NFL or something. Because like you make a crap ton of money.
Man.
Working for this. Like, those are crazy contracts.
18, 19, 20-year-old kids, like they're not ready for that kind of stuff. No, I don't think.
I've actually heard. I can't remember who that was, but I've heard some people talk about you're not ready at that age to have that much money.
No, definitely not. It's just like everybody. You gotta work your way to that point. And like if you make it to the NFL, then you have deserved everything you've gotten. You deserve, because there's a lot that goes into it. There really is, But it's all timing for everybody, and so it's just like enjoy the ride while you can, because you cannot. You're only going to do it for another 4 to 12 years probably. So
once you get into college,
because you got 4 years of college, and then if you have an NFL career, most of those guys don't make it too long.
Really?
So
around 8 years.
Probably is, depending on what kind of position you play.
It's interesting. My wife's a physical therapist, and she is. So we have a 6-year-old son who wants badly to start playing football.
Yeah.
And so as a physical therapist, she's like, I'm getting concussion training, and I'm going to be on the side of the field, and I'm just going to do like assessments for all the kids as they come up. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like,
the game's changing too, and like equipment's changing. Like
equipment's changed quite a bit.
Like now, just at Washita, we have these helmets called Insights, and basically they have like monitors in them. So like when a guy gets hit too hard, our athletic trainer and then one of our equipment people, they both have these monitors, and it shows them. Like I think we had like 11 to 12 of those helmets this past season, and I think we're getting more.
Yeah.
And it just, whenever there's a big hit that goes over a certain force, like
it kind of pops up.
It pops up, so they go check. And
that's crazy.
And it doesn't mean you have a concussion. It just means like, hey, you need to go check on this guy.
They check,
Yeah. So
that's really cool though.
Yeah. So the game of football, they're adapting, and schools are getting to that point. Not the high schools, obviously.
Right.
Those, it's just too expensive for high schools. Some high schools might, but colleges and NFL teams, that's what they're all working with now.
Yeah. It definitely. And I would probably say that it's kind of the same as like boxing. surely you're getting hit all the time. Those refs are trained to like look for different signs of people like getting hit too hard and everything.
Yeah. Those people are crazy, boy.
Yeah, especially UFC.
Yeah,
people,
man. Like
I watch those guys and I'm like would not want to be caught in an alley with that person.
No, I never would have signed up. Like when you go to the career fairs, like UFC would not have been the one I went to.
No, me either for sure. Well, let's dig in a little bit on your story. So, growing up, what was just life growing up? Let's say just from like, the first 10, 15 years of your life, just kind of like, what was that like?
Man, I had a home with two older brothers, so I was the youngest brother. So I was the one that got picked on the most. I was the mama's boy. I was the one that was always going to mom when I was, I definitely was a crybaby. There ain't no, it made me to the man I am. So, yeah. But and then I lived with my mom and dad and stuff. And I mean, we lived in Hot Springs Village, so it's a pretty mellow place. Either you like golfing or going on pontoon boats or something like that. And then I went to school at Jessieville. So I mean, life it's pretty mellow. I mean, we weren't too crazy or anything like that. I mean, I had a good, solid family. We just didn't go to church or anything like that.
Oh, really?
We just we would go to like the Easter service with my grandparents. My grandpa and my grandma, my mom's parents, they live in the village, and that's kind of what brought us. We're actually from Indiana, and that's what brought us down here. When I was 2 months old, we moved down here.
Gotcha.
To be with them because they retired down here. And so
good retirement community.
Oh yeah,
for sure,
no doubt. So they loved it over there, and so that's what got us here. And then like I said, we just kind of started growing up here and going to Jessieville and hanging out with all your friends. I mean, you just kind of walk around the village, you go to the rec, play basketball.
Yeah, I was gonna say
or you go fishing or you go hunting or whatever, stuff like that. So I've kind of done all those things, and then like for me, like I said, I kind of was a pretty arrogant kid as I was growing up.
Really?
I was very, very boastful, prideful. I was the guy who liked being the class clown.
Yeah.
So I was pretty arrogant, and I would pick on people quite a bit. Really.
Yeah.
So I had some relationship problems when I was going through school and middle school and everything like that. But I definitely had a lot of growing up to do. But I mean, other than that, that's kind of how it was. My parents were good. They told me right and wrong. I didn't have any issues like that. I didn't have a whole lot of rope. If I wasn't home by the time dark time, it was nighttime. My phone was being blown up. Or, my mom, she was always calling and asking where I was or what I was doing. If I went from this place to that place, I had to make sure I sent a text or something.
Really?
So
parents, that's around the time like cell phones were really becoming popular
so
too.
I had one when I was in like 7th grade. I mean, especially because we played sports and stuff, so you travel and you're coming back from a bus ride at night. Yeah. Like my parents, they didn't make it to every game or whatever, so you had to have that form of communication. So we got it, and so it just allowed them to have a lot of tabs. So there was no excuses, of not being able to communicate with them and stuff.
It's crazy too. Like nowadays, so my wife has a sister who just graduated high school.
Okay.
And so she's like still growing up, and we live next door to her parents. And so, but like they keep tabs on her. Like there's the Life 360 app, I think it's called. And like they can track her at all times and like see wherever she is and like call and like it's crazy the amount.
Kids today they don't have a chance to make a mistake.
They don't. Well, that's the thing too.
Learn
but
from
I think,
it,
well, that's the thing is like I think I definitely went places that I shouldn't have. To like when my parents were like, "Don't go do something after the game. You come straight home."
Yeah.
Okay, there. Mom. Like
been there, no doubt.
So it's just like, but like, and I definitely made mistakes.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy in high school. But it's just like I learned from that.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned how to like kind of self-control and some things and like peer pressure, like how to handle that type of stuff in those situations. That people like kids today just don't really get.
Yeah, and when your parents rip you one good time, you
yeah.
you get back
in line real quick when that belt comes out.
That's right. So No, I mean, it's crazy now just to think, like, I couldn't imagine my dad and my mom just, like, knowing every step I took.
Yeah.
You know,
you got to get crafty with it, too. Be like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to leave my phone with you.
Yes.
Then we're going to go over here.
You go to church for me.
Yeah. You put in somebody's bag that you know is going.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man. You just got to get crafty, kids. That's what we're saying here.
Yeah. The educational program.
Yeah. So then y'all just kind of went to church on
just like
major holidays
this
type
holidays.
stuff.
My grandparents, they went to church. My grandma and them, they used to do that stuff a lot. As far as like Sunday schools and all that, teaching kids up north, and then they joined the church down here that they were going to. And they went to it regularly, but like I said, I mean, we didn't. It was something that we just we kind of never did. So like Easter and things like that, we would go to church. And then once I got to like 7th grade, I had a buddy, DJ, who him and his brother and his grandparents, they took him to a church called Village Church of Christ. And so I kind of started going to a youth group with them when I was hanging out with them. But other than that, and then start going to FCA, like I just didn't go to church. It was the Brandin show, it wasn't about anybody else. Like I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and all that other stuff. Really, it didn't spark a whole lot of interest to me at that time, and because I just didn't understand it. I didn't see the bigger picture, obviously. So
did your parents stay together? Did they get divorced?
So my parents, they were together all the way up until I was going into my the end of my sophomore year, going into my junior year is when they started going through a separation.
Gotcha.
Is when everything started going with them.
So you were in high school and everything.
Yeah.
My parents, I affectionately call my biological father my sperm donor. But like he and my mom broke up when I was like 1. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember that. And honestly, the guy that raised me that I called dad, he was there since I was 4.
Yeah.
And so it was just like that happened so early that I honestly don't even remember it. Right?
Yeah.
Like my dad is all that I remember.
Yeah.
What is it like just as someone that was, into sophomore year? Them being separated, so they separated first.
Yeah. So, like it's kind of one of those deals. Like, I tell people all the time, it probably really doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're elementary, whether you're high school, or you're a 30-year-old guy. Like, when your parents go through separation, like it's like, it's kind of one of the worst feelings. Like, just to imagine, because I mean that's all I've ever known. Yep. Is your parents just being together. Like you come home at night and your dad and your mom are sitting on the couch or whatever. You're eating dinner together and all those kind of things. And, just the thought of them not being together anymore. And, you kind of like, man, like you kind of put yourself in that category. Like, cause you see other kids or other people going through it. Yeah. But you're like, well, that's not me. Like I'm fine. My parents are together. Like we're a happy family. And then it kind of happens to you and you're kind of, now you're like kind of secluding yourself a little bit and categorizing yourself. And man, I built up a lot of anger. And I was a pretty independent, like I said, it was all about me. I was a pretty arrogant, independent kind of guy. Yeah. And I didn't really like talking about my feelings, emotions, or anything like that, man. And it did build up a lot of anger, like just like towards them. Cause I was just so mad. Cause I remember like I felt like I was trying to do stuff to try to like bring, mend some broken pieces and get them back together. And just, there was just stuff that they weren't budging on. And I was just, it was just so frustrating for me. And so like, and then me just being like, I'm a kid who's still like, I'm still developing, like my mindset, like I'm still trying to figure out who I am, the kind of person I want to be and everything. And so, emotions and all that kind of stuff. It's just like when you're from like middle school through high school, it's just a roller coaster, especially. And then you go through things like that. So I had a ton of anger, and I would lash out on my mom, or I'd lash out at my dad, just, and it may not have been anything just like, super bad, but it was just me just treating them in a way that I shouldn't have treated them. And because they were both adults and they understood like it was time for them to go separate ways. But in my mind, I'm like, no, you guys need to be
That's
together.
Not how that works.
No, y'all like we're a family. Like, you have me and Aaron. We're still at the house, and my other brother, he's actually my half brother. He's my mom's son from her first marriage, but my dad's been raising him kind of like the same way, like since he was like 4 or 5. Yep. So he calls my dad. Yep. Also. So
were you a believer by this point?
So going into my sophomore year, that summer I actually went to an FCA camp because my high school coach, Coach Phillips, basically he like forced me to go. You know, because he's one of those guys who walks around and he's like always trying to get kids to sign up to go to camp. And like, towards the end of the school year, you know when he's walking the hallways, like
it's coming.
So there was multiple times, man. Like I bailed and I walked the other way to avoid. And one day he got me, and I told like I'm pretty sure I didn't sign the paper. Like he put my name on the list, and so I went to that FCA camp. And Micah May, he was actually the speaker at that camp and stuff. And nice. After the last night, man, I finally gave in, and that's when I gave my life to Christ for the very first time.
Beginning of sophomore year.
Yeah, beginning of sophomore year. But
so you were new. You were a new believer. Then.
I was a young believer, but at the same time, like when I left that camp, since I didn't have like an established like church family, or I didn't have that. Community around me, the people around me. Like once I got back to school, like I just didn't know how to do it. You know, I didn't have the people reaching out to me that I needed, and I didn't, I tried doing it all on my own. And then as the school year starts going, like I thought I was going to go back and be a super Christian. I thought I was going to save the town of Jesseville. Like we're all going to heaven. That's how I felt. And I was great, like all the way up through the beginning of that school year. But then as October, November, December starts rolling around, like
you start kind of getting back in the rut of things. Like you have certain ways, right? Like certain things you do. Yeah, I found that to be the case too. When I was 16 and got saved, it was like you're like the superhero that's going to save the day and everything, which I think probably goes back to pride as well. Yeah, because I definitely struggle with that. As well, and just like selfishness and things like that. But yeah, it's like you go back and there's kind of like ruts or grooves of just how you usually do things, and breaking that is definitely hard unless you've got people that are like keeping you accountable and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think about how hard it is now not to fall, to not getting stuck into that routine and like trying to stay in the word on a daily basis and trying to pray continuously throughout the day, and just to make those godly decisions like throughout the day. Like I think about how hard it is and how easy it is to get caught up in our life now, and then here I am as a sophomore, a new believer, just like getting thrown into the fire. Like I had no foundation, so it's just so easy to kind of lose that sight. And so that's kind of as the end of my sophomore year rolled around, I definitely was a believer. But I wasn't a follower. I definitely wasn't doing the things I needed to do. I wasn't reading on a consistent basis. I wasn't going to a church consistently on a Sunday morning. I was still going to the youth group with my buddies just because, like, I've kind of established a friend group there, and it was just kind of like, one of those deals I started doing. But, I mean, I tell people all the time, basically – most of that period, like I couldn't tell you anything that I learned like at the church or anything like that, so I definitely believe there was a God. Like I definitely felt like when I gave my life to Christ, I felt like it was very genuine. I just kind of didn't continue to build myself up and head in the right direction, and then things started kind of happening in that sophomore year, and I wasn't ready to be able to handle them.
I think it's definitely even hard still, especially now, like with 2 kids, a wife, and working in my job and everything. I mean, it's difficult to be staying in the Word and everything. I think that just like that's a constant battle. Yeah, and I think everyone struggles with that. There may be some people that don't. Yeah, there was a lot of times I was like, oh man, pastors just always are in the Word, and it's like, no, they struggle with that too. There's some pastor that actually was honest with me. It was like, no, man, I'm terrible at that. Like I'm getting better. I'm leaning in to try to better myself. But I struggle with that too.
Yeah, I've had a pastor do a sermon where he's like, look, I struggled until like Thursday to really start working on my message. Like I knew what I wanted to say to you guys and stuff, and I knew the scripture I wanted to use, but like until like Thursday, I for some reason I was not diving into it, and it's just like so it definitely. It's everything. That's kind of like one thing like I love about like like just being a Christian in general and being a follower in Christ is just like that's the one thing that we're never gonna be able to just say like we've done it.
Yeah.
You know, so like every day you can try to get better. You're gonna like, you know, football at some point. It's like Tom Brady. He's done. He's done everything. He's like he can't achieve anything more than just adding to his stats. Like you know, that's the only thing left that he has to offer.
Right.
But it's like at some point it's like, all right, I've done everything that you can do in football.
Yeah.
And so like what more can I accomplish here? But it's like in your Christian walk, like I mean it's every day, like you're never going to be able to reach like those, like what would be considered being a great, I guess like what we would think being a great Christian is or whatever. So it's like every day, if you like competition and you like just striving to be better each and every day, like this is something that allows you to be able to do that, you know?
And I think it's important for us to like as believers, like come around the fact that none of us are great at this.
Exactly.
It's like, and I think we get tripped up on some of the stupidest things as well. And well, maybe not stupid, maybe silly is the right word.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot in the South, people talk about drinking, people talk about cussing and things like that. And it's like, I do both those things on occasion.
Yeah.
But like, I don't do it a ton. And I like, it's just, that's a difficult thing that a lot of people struggle with. Is like, because a lot of times you'll see someone that says that they're a Christian and then they'll go do something heinous. Like cheating on your wife and like, you know, with like 6 different people. And they're like, oh my gosh, well, I just cuss every now and then. And like, I'm not as bad as that person. And that mentality is totally wrong. Right? Like,
no doubt.
Like,
no doubt.
And unbelievers, I can see where they would think that. But yeah, it's interesting just to be like, look, I think you hit on something that like community is super important to sharpen each other. And even in our faults, and like finding that community that's not going to like, that's just going to continue making you better without judging you, but they're also going to like call you out.
Yeah, no doubt.
Definitely.
I mean, you know, it is tough because like as Christians, like we are held to an unfair standard, you know, when it comes down to it. I mean, like people who aren't in the church and who have had bad experiences with bad churches, you know, because I mean, they're out there. There's people who are leading churches in ways that they probably shouldn't be leading them or whatever, or just like the drama that's in some of them or whatever. But it's that, and so that steers them away, and just this like unfair standard that we're supposed to be perfect and like we're not supposed to mess up, and so it's just like the idea is like, man, like we're a flawed individual just like you are. Like that's the whole point of this deal. But the whole point is like
let's come around each other. Let's get better.
Like let's help me to be better at what I'm struggling with. Or I might contradict myself one time, but like we're all a hypocrite. Like that's the whole point of the church. Like come together and like, man, like I know like this is what we're supposed to be doing, but hey, you did this the other day. Like let's try to push past it. You know, at some point. And like but everybody's so quick because like, especially for people who aren't Christians or whatever, like whenever they see that flaw, to be able to point it out and like blow it up and kind of give a bad image to that person or just to the church in general is such an easy thing to do. And it's just like, man, like come see like what the church is actually about, not the building, not what's on the front of that church, like who the people are and what it means to actually be a follower of Christ. And like we don't have the right to decide like, is this sin bigger than this sin or that? Like, you know, how is God judging us? Like, what does the word say? Like, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Period, you know? At the end of the sentence.
Like, if you think cussing is worse than drinking, it's like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
like let's look in the word. Let's call sin a sin. And then let's repent. Let's move on. Let's sharpen each other and keep going. And it's like, at the end of the day, we're all striving to be better followers. And I think that's the thing is like, the commitment and the faith of it are the thing that like really mark a true believer. Because it's like, if you have faith and you follow the word, you're going to bear fruit. You know, the scripture talks about bearing fruit, and that's how you know. That's how you know if someone's a believer or not. But it is confusing because it's like there are people that bear fruit that end up, you know, that like they have a porn addiction, or they have you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something else. They did drink, or they did like whatever you think a sin is, whether it's biblical or not. Like there are people that bear fruit that do those things, and it's like, but that's like because of the fall, and like we're not going to be perfect at that.
And I think that shows like just how great like God is, though. You know,
to be able, definitely,
just the fact that through all our sin, like he finds ways to kind of work his way through all of that, and like allow people to see like the Holy Spirit in us, and see like the message. Yeah, you know, sometimes, and
as selfish as I am, that he could use, you know, me to do whatever and just to spread his word and his message. Yeah, that's like crazy. Yeah,
and you know, you think about like guys who are like prosperity pastors or whatever. You know, like how many of those guys are like real genuine, and how many of them are like just you know, regard whatever. You know, I'm not saying
that's got to be exhausting. I'll be honest. To be that like that happy, and I think I'm thinking of Joel Osteen when I'm just going to call it out. Yeah, that man smiles way too much. Yeah, like I get like uneasy around people that are that happy all the time, and like something's wrong. Yeah, your pet needs to pass away or something. You need to feel some other emotion. Show me that you're actually human, not an android right now.
Yeah, and like all their messages are just like mind blowing. It's like, whoa, y'all are killing it right now.
Creating a message on a jet.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, at the same time, it's like, all right, you're doing your thing, but like, how many genuine believers have been, you know, came from that? Because there's
how many people are
like God has his way of just like, I mean, because I mean, there's a lot of good scripture that comes from those guys, and there's a lot of good points and good topics, and there you talk about a lot of struggles that people go through, and he may be standing behind closed doors and doing all this stuff, but like the message is still there for people to be able to take that and apply it to their own life and stuff. And
it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely like it's not binary. Like two things can be true at the same time. Yeah. And I think that's hard for a lot of people in today's world to understand. I think a lot of people, it's like you get labeled, right? Like you're either this or you this. Yeah. And if you like mess up, well, then you're not a Christian anymore. And you're like, okay, well, that's not how that works. Like one. Yeah. Two, it's like you can, like two things can be true. You can bear fruit, but you've also got this sin that's just an addiction, or like it's the thorn in your side, as Paul calls it. Like Paul struggled with that thorn in his side, and it's just like, if he's struggling, and like I use him as a barometer a lot of times, because I'm like, I see Paul as the person that like, if that's probably the closest to perfection that you could ever get on earth, right? It's like to be like Paul. And so I'm just like, okay, like I'm striving towards Jesus, but I'm looking to Paul as like, how far did he get? Because that's probably realistically where we'll be able to achieve on this side of heaven.
Yeah, and then Paul, he's a good one. I've done like the last couple of years. I've done a lot of stuff with like King David. You know, talk about like, I mean, you know, David just, I mean, from David versus Goliath through just his reign as king to Bathsheba to everything like that. You know, like. It shows like, I mean, this is a guy who is anointed by God, who like God has said he's a man after God's own heart, you know, basically. And like just how great that he was, and how perfect, like all the way up through David versus Goliath to the point of him being a king, like how perfect it was. Like, man, this guy does everything right. Yeah. You know, and then, I mean, just the one moment just absolutely just, you know, shattered his reputation for him to have to build it back up again. And it's just like, I mean, those are the people that like you look at in the Bible to say like, yeah, we're not gonna be perfect. Like David, like he's a stud and he still messed up. But like, I mean, God he still found his way back to God like each and every time. Like whenever King Saul was like chasing him around, how much time did he go through doubt and just saying like, God, like I'm done with this, and then you know put his faith back in God, you know, and stuff like that. So,
I like that's just real. Exactly, because I feel that sometimes I'm just like, I'm done with this right now. Like, but it's again, that commitment, that faith is what keeps you grounded a lot of times. So you're going through, your parents are separated, and then I guess they got divorced shortly after.
So they never actually got divorced.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So talk to me about what was the relationship like whenever between your dad and your mom? Did it change quite a bit? Maybe one of them, not the other?
You know, it was just kind of one of those things. It got to the point where they were the reason that they stayed together. They probably should have separated before they did. But they kept trying to push through for me and my brother. Yeah, probably, especially my mom. Yeah, I think she was trying to make it work more for me and my brother instead of for her. You know, and now, like, I wish she just would have done what was best for her, and my dad the same thing, do what was best for him, instead of just trying to make it work. Yeah, because they were to a point where it wasn't working. And there was a lot, you know. I mean, there was a lot of fighting. There was not any kind of like abuse or anything like that. You know, it was just these people. They got to a point in their life where they just didn't mesh like they used to. When they got married. And I mean, it got to a point where their interests were not the same interests, and the things they wanted to do were not the same things. And there was just no point where it was just like the house was just like there was just joy in the house, or there was just like a peace in the house. Like there was always just some kind of tension, and you could just irritation at each other. And you know, it's kind of funny actually when they separated after a couple months of separation. Like that's when like the peace started coming back. You know, just that space away from each other. Started kind of making its way back. But I mean, there was just, like I said, I mean, there was a lot of fighting and just arguments and bitterness, screaming matches and everything like that. And, you know, points of my dad slamming the door and walking out of the house and staying other places and stuff, you know.
My mom and dad, or who I call dad, not my biological, but the person I call dad, they got divorced when I was a sophomore, freshman in college. Yeah. And so it was interesting because I wasn't quite sure what the dynamic was going to be like between that, because since I took his last name and everything, but it was like are we gonna be cool with each other? But like, this is my dad, this is like the person I know, and it actually took a couple of weeks before like he had reached out to me, and then like our relationship has been better than ever. And I could tell after you talked about there being a peace a couple of months afterwards, and it's like there was less stress when you hung out with them individually. And I think that's so, well, I know that's what scares my wife, and like, well, what about us? And like, are our interests not going to be the same? Are our things? And it's like, well, I think there's a reason that their interests split. I think there's a reason that the things that they wanted to do split, and it's because for my parents, I'm not speaking for your parents, but for my parents, I think they just really started drifting apart, and they never kind of like, when they started sensing something, make sure to get back together. They also didn't necessarily turn to the word for, you know, advice on marriage, or like surrounding themselves with like people that were going to speak into their lives. I don't think marriage conferences were a big thing back then too. Now there's tons of marriage conferences and churches and studies and things like that. That like Courtney and I, well, with our small group, we just did one. And then it's like once a year we go to like the marriage conference here at our church. And it's like those things definitely keep us aligned. But I think it's very important that people realize that like you do change over time. Like people change over time. And that is okay, because like my interests have changed in the last couple of years. I used to be like, wanted to be going out, having people over every single day. And now I've started working from home. I just want to stay in my pajamas. I don't want anybody to come over. And Devin's over here like, yeah, we haven't been over to his house in forever. And it's like, I don't know why, but like I've shifted. I've changed to be like this hermit now, instead of like wanting to hang out with people all the time. And now my wife is like the person that's wanting to hang out and everything. It's very odd. It's like people change over time. But I think for a successful marriage, there has to just be this point where you're like, we're gonna work it out, because and like there is no other option. And because like my biological father, he like married 6 different people, cheated on all 6 of them, and I'm just like, that ain't it. Yeah. Like that's not what I want for myself or want for whatever. I like that's not what I want to be doing. And so it's like, I went into our marriage of like saying this is it. And when you have that mentality, you really start working it out. Like you're like, you know what? There is no other option. I know, like, let's take a few minutes to like step away, get less heated, and then let's come back together and talk about this, but let's work it out. I think that's probably the key thing. Yeah. I don't know your thoughts on it, since I don't know if
I appreciate the marriage counseling.
Marriage counseling session here.
Yeah, that's right, man.
So we'll have you back after you get married, after a year after your marriage.
Right. We'll be like, dude, your advice was awful.
It was terrible. Why did you tell me these things? Oh yeah. So then you go through they are going through the separation, and then. Talk to me a little bit about, like, I think it was the next year or so, like within the next couple of years.
So after they started going through that separation in my sophomore year, then they started seeing other people. So they hadn't got divorced yet. There was just kind of a lot of holdups going on, and I think at the same point in time they weren't really ready to, I guess, make that official. And just like I said, a couple other holdups, but like even they were still like holding on to something that maybe they shouldn't have been holding on to or whatever.
Right.
And so they started going through the separation, and then they started seeing other people. And that's when that's when I knew, I was like, this is done. It's over with. Like, my family is separated now, and it's going to be 2 separate Christmases, 2 separate Thanksgivings, like the rest of my life. Like, just all these things like going through my head, and like just seeing like them with other people, like it was really frustrating. And you try to go home and hang out and stuff, and they want you to do stuff with them.
There's
and it's just
this weird
like,
person hanging out in your house, and you're like, who are you?
Yeah, and it's like this person, where they were, like it's a temporary thing. Like it was just like doing something new, doing something different. And that's kind of what I knew. And the guy that my mom was dating, I was not a fan. Just didn't really know much about the guy. Like, I knew he was from the community and area and stuff like that, but we hadn't just heard a whole lot of positive stuff about the guy. But there was a lot of stuff that we didn't know either, that didn't come about till later. And so I was not comfortable ever with the situation. And
did you ever talk to your mom about that?
So like, not really. Like, my mom, like, she made sure like to ask like about certain things before. Like, she was good about doing stuff like that, but like I didn't just ever lay out how. And that's one of the biggest regrets like that I have in my life, is just like if I would have just said like something,
voicing something,
then like today could be different,
right,
kind of deal. But I just was like, I was probably just so frustrated with the situation. I was just at a moment of like, I don't care.
Yeah, you just push it out.
I just kind of didn't want to talk about it really, like and actually dive into any of those kind of conversations. And like I said, she did reach out to and try to have those conversations and stuff. And I mean, even to the point where like the guy was like, trying to move in and stuff. And and my mom really, she allowed it, but I don't think she was even ready for a situation like that. And I don't think she really was wanting it. And it was to the point where she was wanting him to leave also. And I definitely didn't want that. But I was like, again, I didn't want to get into the conversation. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to lay it all out there and everything. And I didn't want to have that conversation. And so,
I took a different approach. So when my mom started dating again, there was this guy that she started dating that, like, very similar situation where we knew some things about him and they weren't good. Yeah. But there was a lot of stuff we didn't know until much later. Yeah. And like, he was just one of those guys, like, when you meet him, you're just like, you're a skis. Like, I'm not going to enjoy your company. Yeah. And they dated for a while, and then I heard that they were going to be moving in, and I'd voiced an opinion, and it didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
It didn't help. It was weird. It was weird because I was like, it's almost like I felt she didn't value my opinion when I thought it should. At the same time, I wasn't living at home.
Yeah.
My sister was, and that was a little weird. And I was
Yeah.
like, hey, are you cool with this? And she's just like, yeah, whatever. I get to kind of do what I want. So like, I'm 16 and like, whatever.
Yeah.
I got a car now and all this. But yeah, it was an odd experience for sure, seeing, because you're like, that's my mom.
Yeah.
So they were dating, and he ended up moving in.
He ended up moving in for a little bit, and it wasn't like he may have moved in November, but everything only lasted another month and a half really after all of that. Because then after he had moved in, then on December 20th, my mom, she came home from work. She was a police dispatcher at Hot Springs Village, so she would work like the 6 to 6 shift.
Yeah.
Or 6 a.m. to 6 at night, these days a week, or she'd work at 6 at night and she had done that 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. And they were there was a Christmas party that the POA, Property Owners Association in the village, they always have a Christmas party every year, and they had it. And so her boyfriend, and then my grandma, they were all going to this Christmas party. And, and I remember she came in the house, told me where she was going. Like, I didn't even look at her. I just said, all right, y'all have a good time, whatever.
Yeah.
I was tuned in on the TV. Like, I wasn't worried about that. And then, I went to bed like probably about midnight that night. And next day, I woke up at like 5:30 a.m. or whatever on the 21st. And
December.
Of December. Yeah. And so I woke up and I don't know what woke me up. I don't know if I just was waking up on my own or if I was hearing noises or whatever. And I was just walking out to the kitchen to get a drink, and there was nobody in the house, but I looked in the driveway and I saw my mom's car in the driveway. And the interior light was on in the car and the passenger seat was kicked back. And I was like, something's not right. Like, this is weird. But in my head, I'm like, my mom, she's probably just getting ready for work.
Yeah.
Because it's 5:30. She's going to work at 6 a.m. Like, just no one deal. She might be in a room back there, and then she's about to get in the car. And so I just went back to bed, not realizing that since my mom went to a Christmas party that night before, she called off the next day. And I should have known that, because she never would have worked a 12-hour shift, hung out because she would have gone to bed at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night, and got up for work the next day. But I didn't, none of that, I just went back to bed and kind of did my own thing. And her boyfriend actually came home at 11 o'clock that day and was like, hey, have you talked to your mom and all this kind of stuff? And I was just like, no. I thought maybe they got an argument. They hadn't talked in a while. And, I started asking questions. I was like, what time did y'all get back last night? And he was like, probably like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I'm like, I didn't go to bed till midnight. But I didn't say anything. This stuff going in my head. Like, I was like, I don't think so. Like, there's something else going on here. And I remember I was just sitting on the couch and looked, and he had stuff all over his pants, but he was a mechanic at the same time. So I'm just like, thought it was kind of weird, but I didn't do. And he's like, all right. And he left and he goes to work. And then that evening he comes home and he's like, you haven't talked to your mom yet or anything like that? And I'm just like no. And he said he had called around, and I'm just like, all right, she's ignoring him. She don't want to talk to him. Something happened last night. Yeah. And my whole mindset is my mom's at work, so at 6 p.m. she's gonna be showing up from work. Yeah. And 6 p.m. rolls around. I'm sitting at the house and I'm kind of looking out the window. I'm just like, man, she's not here. 6:15 rolls around. 6:30. I'm just like,
that's not common.
Something's not right. So I start calling my mom. I start texting my mom, and I'm not getting any response. And like the way my mom was, like I told you earlier, like she was always tabs. Like she always wanted to know where I was when I was, know, things like that. And like me and my brother, she would never ever put us in a situation where we would wear we were everything to her. She never even bought her a pair of clothes because she was always buying our clothes. She wanted us to have the stuff, and she didn't care. She just kind of had that personality that she would give her own jacket off her back to anybody else. And so for me to be calling and her not answer, like something was wrong. Yeah. And I remember my dad, he was in the bowling league at the Fiesta Bowl, and I called my other brother and I was like, have you talked to mom? And I called my oldest brother. I'm like, have you talked to mom? Like, nobody's talked to mom. And so I try calling my dad. I can't get him because there's no service. So I had to call the bowling alley, and I'm like, Dad, like I hadn't talked to mom. I don't know where she is. Like the boyfriend came home, started saying all this stuff, and like this is a situation right now. And so he's like, all right. And the boyfriend was home at that point. He's just sitting in a lazy boy chair. Like for somebody who hadn't talked to my mom, like he's just sitting at the house.
Yeah.
You know, he's not trying to look for her. He's not trying to call or anything like that. And, you know, and I remember he fell asleep in the chair, and I looked over there, and I saw like scratches down his arms, like you know, from thorns out in the woods or something is what it kind of looked like.
Yeah.
And my dad basically just like, all right, tell him to leave, get the dog, get some clothes, and come to my house tonight. And so basically, like, we closed at the house, and that night we actually like went up to the police station and was like, hey, have y'all seen mom or anything like that? And they're like, no. That's when we found out she didn't come to work. That's when we found out she called off. And then you couldn't do anything. You can't put out like a missing person deal until like after 24 hours of them being missing or whatever. And so we had to wait till that morning, till like 6 a.m. Or we actually waited to see maybe she was going to show up at 6 a.m. that day for work the next day.
Yeah.
So my brother and his fiance, they went up to the police station, and she didn't show up. So they put the bolo out to be on the lookout for us, and it started kind of getting pushed through the news and everything. And from December 21st to the 31st, man, like we had no idea where she was. We didn't know if we were ever gonna see her.
Yeah. What did you think had happened during that point in time?
At that point, like, I wanted to think that my mom was just something with her and the boyfriend happened, that she was just mad and she didn't want to come home. Like that's for me, to give me any kind of hope. Like that's what I was focusing on. Yeah. You know, I was not trying to think about like, man, like she could be gone, or she's not here anymore, or you know, things like that. I wasn't like, I was just trying to just stay on that mindset. But like, I'm freaking out, like, because again, like I got to a point in my relationship with my mom, like I turned into that little stubborn high school kid. Like your mom loving on you wasn't cool, right? You know, so like now I'm sitting here like man, I want my mom here like right now. Like I was the times that I didn't let her hug you. Yeah, I was like I was the biggest mama's boy growing up, and then I got to this point where I was too cool for school, kind of deal. And I'm thinking, so I'm just like please mom, like just show up to work at 6 a.m. or things like that. That's everything that's running through my head. And like I remember that night just trying to sleep. Like I felt like I was gonna throw up the whole night, and just this pain, just twisting that was like going on in my stomach. And like my buddy, like who's basically a brother to me and my other brother, and like we basically have took him in our home, and he's at my house, and he's trying to hang out, and he's trying to like just like joke around with me and stuff like that. But it's just like, I I was so focused on everything else. Like
imagine it's like tunnel vision. You're just that's all you see, think about, and everything.
No, and you know, it's kind of weird because like I hadn't just like talked about like a lot of this stuff in a long time. So just kind of, you know, going through it all again, because like, you know, obviously I've gone around, I've shared my testimony, but you hit the meat of this stuff, and now like you start talking through all these details again, and it's just kind of, you know, kind of puts an unsettling feeling in your stomach. You know, and so I just, all that stuff, like, I mean, I was just so focused in on like, just like, please just show up to work at 6 a.m. Yeah. And I didn't sleep that night, and then I just remember my brother called me at 6 a.m. It's like, she's not here. Yeah. You know, and so it's like, where's my mind go after that? Right. And again, now I'm just thinking like, all right, she just went somewhere else. Like something, maybe this guy was going to hurt her, and like she's somewhere or she can't communicate with him and all that kind of stuff, you know? Yeah. So I was going every route besides her possibly not being alive anymore.
Yeah. So then what happened next? There was a couple of days there where...
So it was really weird with like the police station and everything. Like we didn't know what to do, where to look, you know, all that kind of thing. And they said that they were interviewing people, and they were going on searches and all this kind of stuff to specific areas that they felt like they had leads to and everything. And like, it was just like one of the most helpless moments in my entire life, where I felt like I should have been outside. I felt like I should have been doing something. I mean, this is Christmas time. It's cold. We've had rain this week, like, you know, and I'm just sitting in the house and trying to act like everything's okay. And like, but I mean, what am I, you know, like, where do I even start? I mean,
Yeah.
you think about just Hot Springs Village in general, how much area is there.
Yeah.
Then you think about like the Washita National Forest area and just that whole spot and stuff. And it's just like, it was the most helpless point in my life where I just felt like I could absolutely do nothing.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated. And a couple days later, actually on Christmas Day, that afternoon, they found her car burned down a dirt road in the
Burned down?
Burned
Whoa.
down in the, and all that was left was literally the frame of the car. Basically.
Well, so the car was there that morning.
So
when you woke up.
So this is kind of like one of the big things that has not been figured out.
Really?
Kind of deal, because for the car to be drove and his truck to not be there that morning, somebody else had to help.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the one thing that's left out there right now that
Who gave him a ride?
we have no idea, you
Yeah.
know, in that situation right now. But yeah, the car was at the house the 21st, and then it was down a dirt road in the Washita National Forest area, burned down. And when we found out that news, and I'm trying to think, like, I think like one of the, like, either I may have heard it from my dad first or whatever, or I may just saw it on the TV first. Like,
really?
And I mean, I know I saw it on TV because I mean, I saw it with my own eyes, like what was left of the car.
Right.
But they said like there was no person found in it or anything, like, so, but like when you see that, it's like, why else would somebody burn a car? Like, why would somebody like try to get rid of like evidence that way or whatever the case may be? And that's when, I mean, I absolutely just like kept holding that stuff in, and I remember I just like broke down and started crying, and like my brother's like, you know, we're just like hugging and trying to encourage each other. But like, I mean, I have so much stuff like just going, and we all do, like and we're all handling it differently. My one brother, Aaron, he's kind of like in his own world. Like he has a better way of like, he's being bothered, but he has a better way of bouncing stuff off of him probably than like me and my other brother do. Yeah. You know, and so
what kind of emotions go through in this moment?
A lot of a lot of regret, obviously. Just thinking about just like all those other stuff, and a lot of anger because of like at myself again, because like I started thinking about like what I could have said, you know, and then I, you know, anger at like God, you know, just like I'm at a point where I'm like God, like why are you doing this to me? Like there are worse people out there that deserve this. Like I don't deserve this. You know, anger at like even my dad, you know, just like if you guys never would have got divorced, like this stuff wouldn't be happening right now. And so I had that, and then I mean just fear. I mean just absolute fear and just like sickness, because like when you see like your mom's car just burnt to nothing but the frame, like I mean I don't know what else you can feel besides just like, I mean it sends chills down your bodies, It makes you sick to your stomach. It makes you just like your mind just go 100 miles per hour just thinking about all these different things. Like, but like I tried to think like, okay, like they didn't find a body, like there's still a chance kind of deal. But in my head, I'm like
that's the moment where you start
you
thinking
that's
the
when
worst.
Exactly. Like I didn't really
you
have
mentioned
much
having, you know, anger towards yourself, regret towards yourself, your dad. What about the boyfriend? I noticed you didn't mention anger towards him.
Obviously, there is, but like it's like at that time it was a really unknown kind of situation.
Gotcha.
You know, like he was the last one with him, but like until like we started getting a lot of the evidence,
y'all weren't really sure that
we weren't just like 100% positive, and like it was a really weird deal where like there was points where he was said to be helping, like he was doing like doing all the things like the cops were asking him, and like he was cooperating, and like he had a story that kind of sounded like, okay, that kind of maybe makes sense. Like just them getting in an argument, and then she took off and left, but then it's like at the same time she wouldn't have left her house, like she would have kicked you out or whatever, like like we were all feeling like that he was the one that caused everything, but it's like we were so like
You just didn't have anything to go off of.
We had no like clarification on a whole lot of stuff yet.
Yeah.
And then actually after the car deal and everything, like apparently they found stuff up from the mechanic shop he worked at. Like he was looking up like bus tickets like out of town and on his computer, and he started like saying like they started being able to go through like phone records, and we started finding out like he really didn't call the people he said he was calling, and things like that's when like things really started like being kicked into place. Like, all right, now we have, but like, and this whole time, like it was just like my whole focus was just like on my mom, like you know, and it's just like, like I said, you're just mind's everywhere, and you feel like it's him, but it's like, I mean, you just have no idea like what's going on until it's all said and done.
So then Christmas goes by.
So yeah, and I mean it's it's crazy, absolutely crazy, because like obviously as a Christian, as a believer, like Christmas is like such a special day,
right?
You know, in a Christian's life, and in any ways. But now it's like Christmas for me has been tainted a little bit.
Yeah,
you know, it has been kind of scarred, and I still love Christmas. I still love the whole, just meaning, the focus of Christ and everything. But it's like, man, this time is a time where everything kind of happened.
Yeah,
and that stuff like when I wake up on Christmas Day, it's like, like this is when we found this out, and my mom's not here anymore.
Right.
And so a few more days go by, and finally on the 31st, the community put we had FBI out there. We had a bunch of people out there doing a search party investigation kind of deal. Yeah. When we all gathered up at Jessville, at the basketball gym there. And that was like one of the high moments in that entire time, because it was just so awesome to see my community, the people who I've gone to school with, the people who were my teachers who worked at the local restaurants. Yeah. All these you see all these people who care about my mom and just care about us, and I would never have expected my buddies to go out there and do something like that, just because you just don't know what you're gonna find or whatever. And the fact that they were there, or they just showed up just to see us, it just was
just to hang out with you.
It almost brought man, maybe we can find her. It almost brought a piece of a bit of hope that this is today we can get this done.
Yeah,
kind of deal. And so they set out and they did the search party, and we didn't go. My dad he wouldn't let us go, and I didn't want to go. It was smart for us not to go. So and there was news crews there. There was just all this junk going on that was just we didn't want to be a part of. And so we went home, and really by the time that we had gotten home, I mean the search party had probably been going on for maybe an hour or so. My dad, he actually called my oldest brother to tell him that the search party was over and they found my mom, but they hadn't said anything to us yet. I kept seeing my brother and his fiance kind of going in and out of the bedroom. I could tell something was wrong, and I didn't know if they were just struggling with everything going on right now. Right. I didn't know that they had gotten any news yet. And my dad was just saying hey, we're coming home now. And just make sure the boys are in the house and they're ready. And my dad came home, and I knew when I saw him, and it had only been I said an hour, I was just like what is going on? And I just remember he's hey, let's all go downstairs. And I mean I already knew at that point what he was going to tell me, and just the fact of it's every step I felt I just wanted to walk slower and slower, because I didn't want to hear the news that my dad was about to lay out there. And then he they told me that they found her body laying in a pond, and her boyfriend had left her there. And my dad just telling me I'm not gonna ever be able to see my mom again. I mean, this arrogant high school kid who thought he had it all figured out, who was a bully, who was a class clown, who was so independent, who was so prideful, who was so boastful, who thought, like I said, I can do it all. I don't need anything else.
Right.
My dad told me that news, and it just brought me to the lowest point in my entire life, and just absolutely broke me, and it knocked me on my back, and I just felt like I was never going to be able to get up, because again, all the regret, all the times of not hugging my mom when I should have hugged my mom, or when I should have just spoke out and just said the things that I should have said that probably could have prevented this, and and then like the anger of just like the entire situation, the separation, the divorce, the seeing other people, like just all this stuff just going through my head on a consistent basis. Like it was the most heavy time of my life where it just felt like getting up every day after that, it was just like
a struggle.
I don't want to do this, you know. And I had friends come and check on me, and like, I mean, it was great. But
did you turn, like, what about your faith at that point?
So that's when, that's when I was so mad at God. Yeah. Like, again, like I'm just sitting here just like, God, like, what? Like, this makes no sense to me. Like, there's people who are like murderers out there. There's people who are rapists out there. There's people who are doing all this other stuff. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm not a perfect person, but it's like, I mean, I'm just an average kid, and like my mom did not deserve. She was like the most loving person in the world. Like she didn't deserve anything like this, and so I was just so mad at God. Like at that point, like I wasn't praying to God. I was just lashing out at God. Like that's all I was doing, just showing frustration. And and even that, like I wasn't even like focusing on Him that much at all. Like I would lash out and I would leave it at that. Like He wasn't in my mind. Like I wasn't trying to. Calling His name for any kind of guidance or any kind of help. It was just like, God, like I'm done with you. Like,
yeah. So you talked about like each day after that was just fighting to get out of bed. Did you struggle with depression?
Yeah.
Starting then?
So I remember we kind of missed the first week of school, like coming back, we were still kind of with our family, still kind of just recovering from everything. And then I just remember like I went to a restaurant, like I just brought like just being around people. I didn't like, because you look around, you see people like hugging each other. You see like a kid with his mom. And I mean, I still deal with that struggle today. Like when I see at like graduation or like, when I get to like go to people's weddings and I see them taking pictures with like their mom and their dad, like I deal with all that. Or I see somebody cook a meal that my mom used to cook, like just like stuff like that. Like it's unsettling, and so I was all that just really was weighing on me, and I went through every kind of feeling that you can go through. I mean, I went through the depression of just being like, when I was at school, like, I mean, I didn't want to be there, especially early on, like the rest of January. Like I could have thought of just being at the house if my dad would have just allowed me or whatever, like I would have just sat at the house and done nothing. I would have much rather done that. And I didn't want to do anything with anybody. Like I didn't want to go hang out. I didn't want to do a whole lot of stuff. And
did a lot of people try to reach out to you?
I have friends. They were like, my friends were phenomenal. Like they were coming in, they were checking on me like consistently. Like it was good, and it was a good distraction, but that's all it was. It was just a distraction. And once they left, like everything else starts like circling through your head. And like I was doing like trying to do my sports, and like I just wasn't invested into it, and it wasn't giving me that output that I wanted. Yeah. Like when I would put anything into it, like it wasn't distracting me enough to a point where I could, say like I'm feeling better. I'm trying to, feeling happiness anymore or anything like that. And so for like 2 months, I mean, I was dealing with just the absolute, like just like anxiety. I've kind of dealt with anxiety like in high school a little bit, and just like, I mean, days like start thinking about like my future and like other things. Like, I mean, I just felt like I always had like something just sitting on my chest. And then just the thoughts of like suicide. Then, I mean, that depression got so bad. Like, I mean, like suicide was going through my head. Like drugs were going through my head. Like alcohol. Like, I mean, it's crazy. It's like stuff I know I never would have done and never do. Like now, like I never even would think about turning to that stuff. But it's like when you're at your lowest point in your life and you're just like, nothing else is working. Like your friends aren't helping you enough. Your sports aren't helping you enough. Like any of your interests and hobbies. Like, so like, it's got to be what like alcohol. Alcohol might be the thing, or the drugs, or the suicide, and just like trying to find like almost like permanent solutions for something that was going through my head temporarily at that time.
I've never had depression. I mean, I've been in moods for maybe a day max, but nothing like depression. And so it's hard for me to understand that mindset. Can you talk a bit about, like you said that, there was a couple of months there that you were really depressed. Was it those regrets, the anger, were those the thoughts that just kept circling in your mind that kept you in that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because, like, you just think, like, anytime you go and you're in a room by yourself and you're laying down at bed, like, to go to bed at night or whatever, like, the only thing that you can think about is December 31st, like, when they found my mom, you know, and then you think about just, all you can think about is, like, the things you could have done differently. And the things that you could have helped, and it's like, she's not here. Like, I could have done this, I could have done that, and like, I mean, that's just like, it was just like on a constant. It was like clockwork. It was just the same stuff over and over and over again. And it's like, it's so hard to think like positive in that entire, like, and like your mindset, like, you know, like one of the big things like at Washita that we talk about, like for our football team and everything, is self-talk. You know, like self-talk is so important in the game of football. Just knowing that, for the mental mindset of stuff. And like my self-talk at that point was just like, I mean, just the negativity
Very
of life,
negative,
you know, and just like when you start out and you do a day of negative thinking, like you can feel how low you get, and you're like, man, like I don't like this. Like, let's make tomorrow a better day. Well, it was just like a day after a day after a day after a week after week after week of just negative mindset the entire time, and just thinking how things should be differently right now, how the world's not fair, how you know, there's no way I can climb myself out of this situation, or how I could have done things so much differently. Like, there was just no positive thoughts like going through my head at any point. You know, and like I said, I had the temporary distractions, but when those distractions went away, when I wasn't doing my sports or hanging out with my friends or whatever, it's just, I mean, it's just constant. And even like when you're sitting in class, like, I mean, we daydream in class and stuff like that. So I'll be sitting in class, and I mean, there's days I had to walk out of class because like I started thinking about all those thoughts, and like, I mean, I didn't want to be the guy that was just bawling in the middle of the classroom.
Right. That anxiety starts building up in your chest.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, I mean, there's days like my teachers, they were great. Like, they knew like if I stood up and I left, like I had to go.
Sure.
Kind of deal, you know.
So you said you like none of the other sports, hobbies, none of those things were really getting you out of it, and you turn to like alcohol, turn to drugs,
so I never got to that point. Like, I never did the drugs, I never did the alcohol, I never did any self-inflicting harm or anything like that. Those were just all thoughts.
Come close to doing that? What, I guess, probably, what prevented you from like actually doing it?
So like the day that I probably would have just gave in and done all that is the day that like God intervened in my life. You know, like it was a February, it was a Sunday morning, and I'm laying in bed, and like this is like, I'm to the lowest point. Like, I had been at school for like 2 weeks now. I had been hanging out with my friends, I had been doing like my sports, and I'm just like, nothing has been working. And I mean, it's been over a month now that it's just day in, day out, like I'm just having all these thoughts going through my head. And so I'm like, man, I'm just at the lowest point in my life, and I lay it out there, I'm like I need something to get away from this. Like, I'm done with this, like I'm over this pain, like I need to be able to just like release myself from this. And for whatever reason, like I started thinking about that FCA camp that I went to when I was a sophomore. You know, it just popped up in my head, and I started thinking about like Micah and like the things that he talked about, like who Jesus was and what Jesus does for us, and like how Jesus went up on the cross and he died, and there was a purpose in the pain that he went through. You know, and how he wants to, like how he loves us, he died for us, how he wants to carry our burdens with us, and how he wants to push us through, and that life isn't, you know, I started thinking about all this stuff and like who Jesus was, and I was like nothing else has been working. You know, I was like, so I just said a prayer. I was like, God, like give me some kind of motivation right now to get out of bed and go to church right now. And like literally as soon as I said amen, I had a buddy call me, and he's like, hey man, I want you to come to church with me. And it was just like, finally, when I put all my selfishness aside, my pride aside, my independence aside, and just like laid it all out there to God, like that's what he waits on us to do. It's just to like call on his name. And sometimes it's a month from now, sometimes it's whatever, but you know, sometimes it's instantly. And for me, thank God, it was just like instant. Like God like knew like if Brandon's done with life, like this is today. You know, and like God just had that. He put like FCA camp in my head, and then he had a buddy call me and said like, hey man, I want you to come to church with me. And so, you know, I got myself ready and I went to church, and that day it was actually Micah was at that church.
Really?
You know, and he was actually having like this, it's like FCA Sundays basically, and Micah goes around and he tells church groups about FCA, and he's doing like the fundraising, talks about FCA camp and all that. And my buddy Peyton, you know, he wanted me to go because he was going to go talk about FCA camp, and we went to FCA camp together. And he's like, man, like let's go talk about camp and stuff. So I had no idea like what I was getting into.
Yeah.
You know, I just knew like, but this guy who was speaking at FCA camp, who I gave my life to, you know, I didn't give my life to Micah, but he was speaking, and that, you know, he was a speaker that shared
Where
Christ, shared
decision.
the gospel with me for the very first time, and allowed that invitation for me to get like this guy who I hadn't really seen since then is at this church this Sunday morning, like when I was like at the lowest point in my life. And like when I share my testimony, like one of the big things I talk about is like God moments. Yeah. Like there's so many moments in our life where like God is so apparent in our life. Like you can't tell me that he's not real. Yeah. Like you can't tell me that he doesn't have his hand on our life. Like he's orchestrating, like, and I can look back over the last 7 years and know that like God has just like step after step, like done something in my life. And there's all these little moments that we don't see because we're so focused on ourselves. Right. But whenever we finally just like allow him to control the situation, it's just like wow. Yeah. You know, and at that time I didn't even know it. But, and so, and it's funny how God works, because it was at that FCA Sunday morning, like where they wanted like high school kids to come up and speak about FCA camp. Right. And so I'm a guy who I didn't want to talk about what I was going through. I still wasn't sharing my feelings. I still wasn't.
Well, you were just still.
I was holding it all
wanting
in.
to stay home. And not do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like I was to a point where like feelings, emotions, all that stuff, it didn't matter. Like I was just, you know, but God, he knew like I wasn't going to share about anything I was going through. Yeah. So he's like, I'm about to put you in front of a bunch of people and break you down. And so like I got up in front of those people, and like I'm just talking about camp. Like these people don't know who I am. They, you know, they know like my mom, what happened, but they don't know I'm her son. Like they just know that I'm just a kid from Jesseville at this point. Yep. And so, and I'm not even talking about any of that kind of stuff. I'm just up there to talk about FCA camp and how great it was. Yeah. And all that stuff. And man, like just talking about camp, like I got like probably 30 seconds in, like, and I absolutely just like, it just broke down and just started crying. And it's like, guys, like if you're not going to do it, like I'm going to put you in a situation where people know you need help. Yeah. And so like after that, it's like people just started swarming me, like, and just wanting to invest in my life after that. Like if my buddy Peyton never would have called, and like I'm so grateful for him, because like if I never would have got that phone call, like who knows where I'd be right now. Sure. And like people like Micah started investing in my life. Yeah. Chuck and Michelle Bill, they were actually at that church, and they're huge FCA people. And Chuck was like one of my first like mentors, like started investing in my life and pouring into my life. Coach Phillips, my football coach, like he just started heavily investing into my life. And it's just like now I had that community that I needed. Yeah. And they started like just investing in me and telling me like just like there's a reason for the things that you're going through. Like there's a purpose in the pain that you're going through. And they just started loving on me, encouraging me, and they started showing me like who God really was. Like God's not the sin of this world. God's not the bad things that happen in this world. Like sin is real, and none of us are excluded from it. Yeah. And it sucks. Like, I mean, it's like the things that happen, it's just like, it's so crazy. But I mean, none of us are in a point to where we're not affected by it. And that's why we have to be so dependent on the Lord. Yeah. And like, that's
I think that in the community too, around us, the God's put in place. It's interesting that like once you talked about once you opened up, it's just like everybody started coming in. And I think as guys, a lot of times the pride keeps us thinking we can handle this and everything else. And I mean, in your story, I mean, like it sounds like you literally got to the point where pride, selfishness, arrogance, independence was just all basically stripped away at that day that you were just at the lowest of lows. Yeah. And God was like, intervene. Yeah. I think it's so difficult when you go through the pain of whatever it is, whatever your most painful moment is, to know that there's a purpose in the pain. That doesn't make sense a lot of times. At least it didn't for me when I think about times in my life where there were pain. But it is always the case that 2, 3, 7, 10 years later, you do look back and see, okay, because of this and because I went through this, God would like used me in a way to help these people or to do this or to make his name known. And but it still sucks, right? Like, I think that's the thing is like nobody wants to talk about it. It still sucks. But I think like being open, especially as men, like just being open to each other and realizing no one's exempt from sin and no one's exempt from the pain. Like that's the hardest thing that we have. And I think if we did that, like, again, once you just open yourself up to other people coming in and mentoring and everything, like you start seeing that. You see that other people aren't exempt from sin and pain. And like we're all working together and we're all looking in the same direction. That's towards Christ. So talk to me a little bit. So you start working with FCA, and then I imagine like you go to college and
so basically like after that Sunday morning, like me and Micah, like we stayed like heavily connected. And we can actually like I started going around and like sharing my story because like, I mean, it's so crazy when you see just like, whether it's talking about like pride that you go through, or your parents going through a divorce or separation, or the fact of losing my mom the way I did, like somebody's impacted by a certain part of your story. Like there's somebody going through something probably, and that's why it's so important for us to share our testimony. And like, like that was like I really started finding like purpose from that. Because I probably was dealing with like, what am I going to do now? Like, I lost my mom, I like lost like part of my world, you know, and
huge part.
You know, I'm starting like thinking like, what am I going to do now? Like, what am I going to do with my life like now after all this had happened? And going around and just like sharing my testimony, seeing like how my coach like impacted my life, and then being able to kind of go around and like share my stuff, my struggles that I went through, and see the fruit that came from it. Is like, that's what like where purpose came from. And because of a coach investing in my life, that's what kind of like motivated me to want to go and be a football coach and go and mentor into high school kids' lives, middle school kids' lives, college students' lives, like wherever I was at. Like that's one of the main reasons. Like I just wanted to go and be a coach because of how much impact he had in my life during that time. And so like in that time, like I got baptized, and I started going around. I became an FCA huddle leader. I became a family farm counselor in Malvern. Just started doing all that stuff, and it is hard. Like you said, like when you go over and share your story, it's like I would love to have my mom here. You know. But I know like just the idea of like what I'm doing for the kingdom, and I'm not allowing like one tragedy to become two tragedies. I'm taking my tragedy and I'm going to allow God to use it and give it meaning, give it purpose, and allow it to be something that God can use to glorify him and to save other people's lives. And I know like me, this isn't just me, like this is God's story through me, and this is my mom's story. This is my mom, doing work still. Even though my mom isn't here anymore, this is every bit of her as it is me.
When I was just about to say, I imagine that like obviously she would be super proud that even in that tragedy, that tragedy, again, there was a purpose and there's like a mission in your own life now to share that story, to relate to other people and take that on. Definitely.
And so we just, after then I graduated high school, and I went to Henderson State University, and I became like a student coach over there, where I started helping out with the football team. And then I got involved with the BCM over there, the Baptist Collegiate Ministry over there. And as soon as I came in, like a guy named Jared Farley, who's the director, just like he became basically my discipler, and started helping me grow as a Christian. And even with the football team, like it was funny how it all kind of worked out. Like I said I was going to be a student coach. And that summer I actually met a guy who was doing that already, who's a heavy believer, who's one of my best friends today. Nice. And it's just like God like kept putting people in my life, and like throughout my entire time at college and everything, like there was like, even if I wanted to like fall away from God at any moment, it's like there's too many people around me. Like God had just set me up with too many great people around me to even begin to allow me to just waver that far. And so I started I got super involved with the BCM. I became part of the discipleship team, the speaking team. Got heavily involved with FCA at Henderson State. Was one of the huddle leaders at Henderson State for, like all the athletics and stuff. And then worked for the football team, like I said, for 4 years. And every summer I still continue to do my FCA huddle leader stuff at FCA camp. I continue to do the family farm stuff. But even though like all that stuff sounds great, like those years of college though were still really, really hard.
I was gonna ask, so I mean, like obviously that FCA Sunday kind of kicked things off in a different direction. Yeah. Did you still struggle with depression?
So
and maybe even today?
So it's crazy. Like today, like I don't, like I have my moments where I just deeply, deeply miss my mom. Like I said, it can be something like seeing somebody cook a certain meal, or a graduation, or whatever, or you just see people hugging their mom. Yeah, it's those moments. And I think about my mom every single day. I think about her every night before I go to bed, like all these things. So I have those moments where I I get pretty low as far as just like missing her. But a lot of it are good thoughts, and like just talking to your mom, just like you whatever, just on a daily basis and stuff. But like after that FCA Sunday, like I probably still kind of up and down a little bit, but really like I was finding like so much joy and happiness like with what God was doing in my life. Yeah. Like the depression like started really like fading away like pretty quickly like after all that, and like I started realizing it's like crazy, like man, like my sports never made me feel like this, like my friends never really made me feel like this, but like like what God's doing for me like on a daily basis, like it's just like unbelievable. Like I was actually like looking forward to getting up, like I was looking forward to going to school again, and like the opportunities like going around with Micah, like I was looking forward to those opportunities with Micah, and like man, that was like one of the most like those times where I was like more heavily in the word than probably I had ever been in my entire life. Like we talk about how it's a struggle, but like in that time, like it was like a 7-day a week kind of deal. Like I was like getting after it, and I was just like just taking in everything like God was like throwing at me at that time. And so really like just as that semester kind of rolled through and I finished up my senior year, like the whole like depression and all that kind of stuff, like it didn't really have any hold on me anymore, and even going through college, like I didn't deal with nights of depression or weeks of depression or anything like that. Like it goes to show you like, like I didn't need medicine. I didn't need any of this other kind of stuff. I just needed like God in my life. I just needed his purpose in my life, and his promises in my life to be able to find happiness and joy, and to be able to find like I have a purpose in this life, regardless of what I had gone through. And so, like all that I started, but it was just like the daily battles that I dealt with in college, because even after my mom had been found and stuff, we didn't go to trial until the month of March of my senior year of college. I was a junior in high school when I lost my mom, and I was a month away from graduation in college before we actually went to trial.
It's a long time. And
the trial was delayed 8 times. During this process, it was kind of like every 3 to 4 months, because like the big deal of why they were able to kind of keep delaying the trial so long is because of phone record stuff, because like the phone records in the trial are what basically pinned that he was guilty between you watch all these like crime shows and they talk about like pinpointing where people are. Like, they used like triangulation basically, and they were able to like show like where he was like within like 50-mile radius or whatever, depending on like what phone towers he was close to or whatever. And so like they were like, his lawyers were like basically trying to say like they didn't have enough of the phone records, or the FBI wasn't giving him enough access, or like they shouldn't be allowed to use those in the trial, because it's crazy. Like I've never been part of anything like that, but it's so crazy like what evidence can be thrown out regardless of how substantial it can be or whatever, you know.
Like a technicality.
Yeah, just stuff like that. Like if the other people didn't have a chance to look at it the same amount as like our lawyers did, they could just like almost throw it out. And so that was like a big thing that delayed it multiple times. And then towards the end, there was like they started asking for DNA tests because they said they found some type of DNA on my mom's shirt or something like that. Here 6 years, almost 6 years later.
Yeah.
And so the last 2 times it got delayed is because me and my brothers had to go do DNA testing. My dad had to go do DNA testing. They went and did DNA testing for all these other people and stuff. And it was just, it could have been just anything.
Yeah.
They said it could have been a deer.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, like whatever.
That's crazy.
But so.
Yeah, it's interesting that with people, so I know people that struggle with anxiety. My wife struggles a lot with anxiety. And for her, it's interesting. Like, she did take medicine in college for a couple of years. Then she got off while we had our second child. And then it came back, but she actually exercise.
Yeah.
She's been exercising since about October. And it has the same effect as the medicine did.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that for some people, just physical exercise can have that same effect of helping them cope with depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
But then there's some people that they're just kind of like me and my ADD. I cannot focus without ADD medication.
Yeah.
And I tried in college for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I got married and Courtney's like, what the crap is your problem, dude? You were things are falling through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I have ADD and I've tried to not. And she was like, well, it's apparent. I was like, yeah, I just need to go back on my medicine.
Yeah.
And it's just some people just can't do it. And so it's interesting just hearing your story of yes, there was a time that, immediately after I struggled with that, but after it sounds like a couple of years, it was there's really no hold of that. And so that's really interesting to hear. Yeah. Well, so now you're finishing up your
I got 6 hours left. And I'm actually going to finish that this summer. So
Nice.
I'll be done with all of that.
Is that a master's?
Yeah,
degree?
it's in educational leadership.
Nice.
So if I want to be a principal or superintendent one day or whatever.
And then you got an interview coming up.
Yeah, I got 2 o'clock. Yeah, 2 o'clock today. Yep.
And that's for coaching. That's cool.
Yep.
To see kind of that come back around.
Yeah. And again, like I said, looking over the God moments of my life that have shown how just real God is on every day.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. And just kind of I really kind of got to see it even with FCA when we had Oscar kind of do the video, just of my story, but also just with FCA in general. And it's just you kind of get to see it laid out in a way, because I do all the sharing. I never just get to sit back and just get to really just kind of look at it sometimes, So it was really kind of cool just to kind of see man, a lot of it started with my road started with a godly football coach, because he's the only reason I went to FCA starting in 7th grade. He's the only reason I went to an FCA camp my sophomore year. So he's the only reason that I ever just really got to hear the gospel, you know, presented. And so being able to see it started with the coach, and here I am potentially this is what I could be doing for my career or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. In your 20s, I feel like I never really kind of looked back and reflected on much, especially younger 20s.
Yeah.
Then I started getting 28, 27, and then onward. And now with kids and everything, I reflect a lot.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about just even this podcast. I didn't intend for it to be this way, but I'm kind of this is kind of a memoir in a way for my kids later. I want to document stories and things like that for them to learn from. I'm getting real I feel like I'm getting old, because I'm starting to reflect and it's interesting. I'm how do you leave a legacy? What does that look? And really, I think as believers, it's very clear that discipling people and being open and honest with each other, and that is the clear way of leaving a legacy of any worth. But I think still in my own work that I'm doing in technology and education, it's I kind of want to leave a legacy there as well, right? Like I want to do a great work that people can kind of stand on the shoulders of down the road. So
no,
I'm getting old.
I mean, it's like you know, everything is like scripture based too. It's like whenever you're like when you're in a profession, like God like wants us to give it our best and like you know to be great at it and stuff, and humbly of course, and like you know, allow it to be able to glorify Him and stuff. But you know, my football coach from high school, I mean, one of the big things he told me is just treat everything like a ministry opportunity. Yeah. You know, I really like took that to heart, especially like just with coaching and stuff. And it's like, talk about leaving like that legacy. Like I think about like with OBU, what I've been able to, what Coach Knott has given me a voice to be able to do over there. What God, the position that He's put me in, like being able to say like when I'm done with OBU, like have I left a mark that has made a difference like for the kingdom? Yeah. You know. And it's just about treating it every day as a ministry opportunity and just working at it and just to be not to settle, to try to be the best one at it. Like I still like I want to be the best coach, you know, like I want to win the most football games. Like I'm competitive, like I don't want to lose. For sure. So thankfully I went like OBU is a great place to be because we've been so successful. So you know, it helps the resume a lot. You know? So, exactly. So all that stuff's been great, but it's like also that, like it's the bigger picture stuff, and that's where you like find the joy. Like if I just focus on football, because those days are so long and you put so much time into it, like if it was just about football, like I wouldn't be happy. Like I already know, because I mean, if you work at any D2 school, you're going to put a lot of hours in and you're not going to get paid a lot. You know, so it's like, is that output good enough for you to be happy? Right. But then you find like just hanging out with like those college athletes and getting to joke around with them, invest in their lives, and you know,
create a community,
you know, and just hear some of the feedback from them, just like what you're doing is making a difference. You know, it's awesome. So
cool. Well, like I said, appreciate you taking the time. This has been just really insightful, just hearing how you went through and really just hearing how God kind of came through and the redemptive thread that He had there. That was really great. Cool. I think that is a wrap. Thank you so much, Brandin.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me. This was a first time. So camera right here. I didn't know. I kicked it at one point. I was like, I just ruined the show. So I started sweating for a second. I'm
trying. We're still figuring out all the camera angles and everything. But no, it was really good. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep. That's a wrap.